Right, let's crack on again. Part 7. This is going to be concerning my gambling that was increasingly bad in Edinburgh and a stint I had in jail. Not proud of it, but it is what it is. And the last section I'd explained my sort of relationship with Gary and how I'd been stalked and was continued to be stalked. I was spending my monthly pay very quick. Had breakdown after breakdown, not quite knowing what was going on. I'd actually gotten into debt sort of quite early when I moved to Edinburgh. I took a credit card with me, and by the time I was 22, probably, I had credit card debts and store debts and already had bad credit. So, I'd fucked things up at that point, not being responsible. I was mature and level-headed in so many ways, yet completely irresponsible on other ways. And I can justify it anyway, but there was just so much going on. With my gambling, it was mainly centred around fruit machines. We joined the casino, myself and Gary, and Gary then at that point had moved from the Caledonian to the Balmoral Hotel as a cocktail barman. They sort of head-hunted him. They stole him from the Caledonian, and he loved it. And I was still seeing Gary regular, and still didn't know who was stalking me. Gary had the gift of the gab. He could talk movies, all the famous people who would come into the bar he knew. He met a lot of famous people. I met a few famous people. It was all quite exciting. Apart from the malady of being stalked and my malady of drinking too much and just being hedonistic. One night, so I'd got back to Leonard Cheshire and I was working. I got promoted as well after my breakdown. Strangely, I was the administrator for the care at home service, which is just, people with physical learning disabilities, more learning disabilities with care at home. And I was the admin guy who did all the rotas, and I did the payroll for all the staff, and it was quite a responsible job, and I loved it because I loved everyone I worked with. It was great. My boss Kathleen was just a gem. I was very happy with the job, but my life outside was just in tatters. And Kathleen, my boss, knew that I was capable and very capable of the job and good at the job, but maybe they had a slight inclination because I just had the breakdown and they knew of the stalking. I had no secrets from them. They kept me in there and tried to support me as much as possible. So sadly, with me spending my money each month and the casino getting a grip of me more, because you could just spend so much more so quickly in the casino. I went to the casino very drunk one end of the month and spent all my wages in a go. I jumped in a taxi and I went back to Leonard Cheshire where I worked and put the alarm code in and got the taxi to wait for me. I went and took £700 out of petty cash, which I had the key for. Went back to the casino, lost all the money, got another taxi, went back and took whatever was left in petty cash. I think it was 500. So spent all of that in one night and my wages, and walked home, was sick, and stayed at Gary's, feeling sorry for myself. I phoned in work the next day sick. I had the key to the petty cash, and I didn't want Gary to bail me out of this. He couldn't anyway if he wanted to, I don't think, at the time. I wanted to sort it out, and after 5 days off ill, I I told Kathleen what I'd done, and I was disgusted with myself. Sadly, they had to get the police involved. It was theft. My looking at it at the time was, oh, I'm borrowing the money. I'll pay you back. I'll win it back. Of course, no such thing happened. So the police arrested me, and I got charged with theft, and that was it. I was due to appear in court. I was waiting for the date. My workplace were very supportive. They were very surprised at what I'd done, but they didn't hate me. They just felt sorry for me, really. Kathleen wrote a fantastic letter, and Jeff, the big boss above, wrote, between them they wrote a letter supporting my character, that it was not in my character to steal, and to do something deliberately nasty, which it isn't. Gambling can make you do crazy things. Drink can make you do crazy things. Being an addict to any, if you're ingesting or it's a mental addiction, whatever it is, can make you do ridiculous things, and such is my persona. In my early 20s, I was that crazy fool. So we had the date for court, and two of the friends I worked with, Sandy and Martha, they came along and supported me, and Gary came to court, and it was very nerve-wracking, and I was very close to getting jailed. The judge sentenced me and said I was very close to going to jail, but he was going to give me the maximum of 240 hours community service, and I had to pay the money back, and that was great. That was a relief. So we left court and got very drunk, straight to the booze. So, I didn't feel like I still felt like shit, but I was relieved. Nonetheless, I still ended up going to jail. After the sentence, I was on benefit, and I started doing the community service at Barnado's, doing furniture, helping out there twice a week, at least once a week. But I was not paying the money back properly. I was paying them bits here and there, and after a few months, I couldn't pay them or avoided it. I got one warning, and then you get no further warnings if you don't continue to pay, which I soon found out. They took you to jail. Now, before all that happened, myself and Gary had quite a falling out. I was staying at Gary's during this period, sort of staying on the couch. His other lodger, Edmund, had moved out, so I was with Gary in a close capacity, except I was staying on the couch more than sleeping with Gary. Things were really tense. I was still going out and seeing men and doing stupid stuff. I can't remember how this happened exactly. It's a bit fuzzy, but I found something in one of Gary's drawers to do with a phone bill of mine, and it indicated that he was probably a person who was stalking me. And all of these things became apparent, that Gary had been part of this stalking. On what level, whether he was writing things on walls, whether he was texting me, emailing me. I don't think he was capable of doing all of it. I think it was mainly this other person who knew him, who was jealous. And I'll talk about that a bit more, but what happened is I ran out of there, and I declared myself homeless. I had to spend a few days in a hostel, declare myself home, and I was put into a council flat quite quick. Somehow I was still speaking to Gary. It's very odd. I mean, I wanted him to admit it, and he never would. There was one time I saw in his eyes he was near to tears, and I knew it was that he had done some of these things to me, that maybe the photographs he had found in a one of my drawers when I lived at another flat. He was a very, very clever, psychologically disturbed man, and yet I still do. I don't know, your first love, how can you get over it? But from what he and his other friends had put me through, I don't know how forgiving I can be about that, but it happened. So I'd moved into this flat and I was taken to jail because I wasn't paying my agreement. I was doing the community service, but I didn't pay. So I was plonked off to jail with a hangover. And Edinburgh jail. So the first went to jail, and it was yeah. I'm laughing now. The first day was in a real shitty cell with someone. But as I went into jail, this guy was coming out, and he said, "Man, it's a fucking holiday camp in there, man. Don't worry about it," because he could see I was nervous. He says, "You'll love it," and he was right, really. I was supposed to do 28 days in jail or a month. I ended up doing 14. Very weirdly, when the first day was in a horrible cell, then we got moved up, which was like a brand new jail. It all had power showers and it was brand new. And as we got put into our rooms, somebody shouted, right, so Keith Pentland being my name, obviously, and I went to the cell to see who I was staying with. And then there was another Keith Pentland, which is just the weirdest thing. This old guy comes into the same cell, and I said, "This is mine, I'm Keith Pentland." And he says, "So am I, I'm Keith Pentland." This old guy, geezer with a moustache. And I said, "No fucking way, what's the chances of that?" And he was, that was his name, Keith Pentland, on the same, and we were, put in the cells at the same time. So, he went to some other cell, and my first day was with 4 days was with this guy who was going through alcohol withdrawal badly, and he was just in jail for not paying something, and I don't know what he did, some really mediocre thing. And the thing with jail is, once you're there, it all just circles around getting cigarettes and getting drugs. That's the gist of it. Nobody's got much money. Some do have money. Everybody's scrounging. Everybody's just working the system, playing their little internal game, and it's just to keep them alive and have a bit of banter. One of the inmates shaved my hair because I needed a haircut, and it was all right. The guy who had first stayed, who was an alcoholic, and he was going through proper withdrawal, he paid his money and got himself taken out. Gary came to visit me in the jail. My next cellmate was this complete lunatic, tattooed everywhere. And he came across at first as this hard man, but he was soft as muck, and we ended up being okay. In this jail, you got 3 movies a day, 3 meals a day. The weekend on Saturday, you got a fried breakfast. Gary was putting £5 into your prison credit so I could get noodles and things like that, and it was fine. I was living better than I was on the outside in my council flat that had no carpet, no curtains, just a bed, So jail was fine. Gary came and bless him, no matter what he'd done to me, he was claustrophobic, and he came to see me twice, and when I got out, he came to see me. None of my friends came to see me. I sort of understand. I think a lot of them thought, well, he did it to himself, and I did, I did. So, jail was one downside to it. It was the height of summer as well. The Edinburgh Festival was going on, and fuck, it was hot. Man, Jesus, it was so hot. And I'd missed almost half of the festival by being in prison. So there you go. That was me in prison. I avoided prison, but I ended up in prison. Yeah, but I say in comparison to my council flat, it was fine. I'm sure that it's all postcode lottery, isn't it? Where you go to jail, you get in a shitty prison. Depends on the crime, but where I was, it was all right. But of course, when I left, I went back to my council flat, and I'd now got a criminal record. So references for a new job. I had no idea what I was going to do at that point. I just tried to live life written here in my empty council flat. No carpet or curtains, just the bed I got from Bernado's. I had a fridge and a George Foreman grill, and I had a bath, so I had somewhere to get clean, and I was doing my washing my clothes in the bath. You know, I'm not a material kind of guy really, but I was stealing things like ham and cheese and bread from the old shop when I was really skint, and stealing red wine now and again, and so I tried to get back to normality after prison, but I realised no, I had to get away from Gary was another thing, because throughout everything that had happened between me and Gary, whether I was mentally disturbing him or he was mentally disturbing me, and who was the stalker, because nobody was telling me, nobody was coming up and saying I did this to you. Gary wouldn't admit it. I was driving myself insane, so I thought, I'm going home. I'm going back home to Thurso. So I spoke to my mum and said, look mum, I think I want to come home for a little while and just get my shit together. She didn't know I'd been in jail, nobody knew. So that's it, that's that part in Edinburgh. It had beaten me up. I'd thoroughly lived a very hedonistic, condensed sort of nearly 5 years in Edinburgh. Just packed it in, you know, the huge highs, huge lows. There's so many stories I could say there, but lots of drink, still lots of drugs, not pot, but lots of clubbing with ecstasy. So the next part's me going to be going home and starting another chapter. But again, you know, with my life, I've sort of got so far and then felt I've been failed, I've broken, I've done something stupid, or life's beaten me, or my mental illness has beaten me, and that's sort of a pattern that continued. So my next stage will be me going home and starting a new stage of my life, which was further education to study as a chef.